love the fact that you said apparently.
Yeah, of course, I wouldn't
Because
know.
if
Yeah.
that is where your stronghold is, Toivo, we must use common sense sometimes. If that is where the stronghold of the party is, do you not think that those places would have first priority to us in terms of uploading? Why would we upload a town where we only have one seat first, as opposed to where we have, for example, 4?
I hear you. Because, I mean, for me, this is just strange. It cannot be in 2025 where the trail of papers exists through the technology that we have, that this is a he says, she says
Let ECM
battle.
release the paper trail.
Yeah.
Let them release the paper trail. Because I would think that an electoral commission, which is basically, quote unquote, standing on its ground, I would have expected that the paper trail is released in conjunction with the press statement.
So there was an extension. This is what ECN is saying. There was an extension still, after recognizing that there are errors, they identified errors that different political parties made. They granted an extension
From 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.
to all affected parties, organizations, associations, and candidates, including LPM. They're saying that, including LPM. This extension for rectification, so from 11 until 3 o'clock in the afternoon on that day. During this granted extension period, LPM, as one of the affected parties, successfully corrected errors identified in nominations of 18 out of 20 local authorities. This fact confirms that LPM utilized and benefited from the administrative mechanisms put in place by ECN and subsequently complied with that. So
if we rectified these issues, as they are saying, fully, as they are saying, do you think that we would have a problem today?
I think what ECN is trying to say here, they can speak for themselves, but what I'm deducing from their statement is that LPM is not taking accountability for the laxity with which you approach this thing. They seem to suggest that you were simply not up to speed with the way you were doing things.
Based on this statement, all I hear is allegation, 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 allegation. I would expect the Electoral Commission of Namibia to come with a paper trail to support their allegations.
Yeah, I think there's a platform for that to happen.
Because we are not the only political party which also experienced issues. The AR also experienced issues. So did the Windhoek Ratepayers Association, also experienced issues. Sean Gariseb also went to court through his lawyers, Kadila Momo, regarding the issues. So if these political parties, including the LPM, are lying, where's the paper trail to substantiate their claims?
So Sean Gariseb, the court vindicated ECN actually.
I read that judgment, but I didn't read it fully.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I must say that our cadres, of course, the Ratepayers Association, we are the opposition, and we would like to believe that we have one common goal. I believe that my brother Sean Gariseb filed in the wrong place, which is in the High Court and not in the Election Tribunal, which is in the Magistrates Court. Perhaps it would have been better. However, I believe that we are coming to a time and a period whereby the people of this country are losing faith in the electoral system as well as the judiciary of the country.
Yeah.
How many times has ECN not been taken to court? And how many times has ECN won? Then you must also start questioning if we can see that the ECN is deliberately sabotaging opposition parties. Because why is it that SOPO does not have issues like these?
So I don't understand then, William. If ECN here says then that after the extension, you successfully, as a party, you successfully corrected errors
That is untrue.
that were identified in 18 out of 20, meaning only 2 were left uncorrected, if that is my interpretation. So, in other words, if that is the case, why do you still have this many
local authorities where we are not contesting?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can see the contradiction from the side of the ECN.
Yeah, no, they are giving a chronology. They are saying that you didn't have representatives in those areas, then the extension was granted, and eventually you had 18 out of 20. So there's that chronology to say somehow gradually you corrected yourselves. And what I would have thought is that after that, you wouldn't have this long list still. Where you are saying today.
I don't believe that as a party we would be fighting so hard if we corrected these issues. That's the problem that we have with the ECN as a country. The ECN must come to a point where it can take accountability and say they don't understand their own technology. They introduced a system that they don't know. They introduced a system that failed the country. They introduced a system that has impeached on people's right to vote. They must take accountability. And when is the ECN ever going to reach a point where it's going to take accountability and say, colleagues, we introduced a system that we don't understand and we have failed you? When is the ECN ever going to come to a point like that? I don't think that the ECN has it in them. Because at this point, it's playing as if it's an extension of the SWAPO Party headquarters.
Missed the latest episode of Tourismus? Don't worry, Echo has you covered. Catch every travel adventure, insider industry news, and exciting destinations from Tourismus anytime, anywhere. Visit www.oneup2.com and click on Echo to relive the journeys, rewind the adventures, replay the stories. Tourismus, where adventure meets prime time.
On mining, you have different stages of mining. So you usually have the exploration phase, and we have a lot of dual listings of those especially. So basically what they do is they put the business case together as to whether there's enough of whatever the ore is that's going to be mined to actually build a mine and produce enough to carry it through.
Yes.
So those typically start off out of Toronto or Australia.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is they have all kinds of incentives for those companies to do their initial capital raising there. Because remember, these are greenfields. There's no mine built yet.
Yes.
They're doing testing samples and whatever. They need to raise a lot of money to do that. So it's high risk. And those two jurisdictions typically get all of that business. Like I said, there's tax incentives and all kinds of reasons why that works. Also, it's also very specialized.
Yes.
So we tend to get them to do a list if they're doing something here so that they can disseminate the information and see if there's an appetite locally.
Yes.
So most recently, we actually saw Usino do a local capital raise for that project that they ended off selling to the Chinese.
Okay.
And I mean, they from the capital raise to when they sold it, I think was around 6 months, and people doubled their money.
Wow.
It was an exceptional, high risk, high reward example. It doesn't always work that way. But that was great. And so I think that market is developing locally.
Okay.
And although the pension funds wouldn't necessarily be allowed to invest in those because of their mandate,
Yeah.
because that's certainly a little bit more conservative, I think there's a market that's developing there. And then, of course, once that type of project gets sold, for example, Husab
Yes.
is owned by the nuclear power company, which is owned by the government,
Of China.
and they're supplying themselves
Yes.
with uranium.
Yes.
So they certainly don't always list.
Okay.
It depends who takes it up.
Yes.
So if you have a big mining company like the Anglo-Americans of the world, then they can build a mine and you can buy those shares and you can trade in it. But oftentimes it gets bought by parties that wouldn't share the shareholding.
Okay, which industries in Namibia are generally listed, and which ones do you find that they don't list much at all?
Okay, so on the mining companies, we have a lot of dual listings.
Yeah.
On financial services, we have a lot of local, almost all the banks are listed.
Okay.
And that's because Bank of Namibia encouraged them to actually list.
Good.
So you've seen a lot of those IPOs coming through. We used to have nothing in ICT. Now we've got MTC and Paratus. So that's come through nicely as an industry. It's certainly a growth industry. It's
Yes.
performed very well. So currently we have nothing in tourism.
Okay.
That's certainly something we're working on that I'm sure we'll get to announce something along those lines soon enough. And then, on the retail side, you have Model, Woermann Brock, We have the internationals, which you can invest in the holding company, but we don't see anything locally there. I always think, and the case study was actually done with Vodacom, is if you allow your clients to become shareholders,
Yes.
it's probably the best way to connect them to your company forever.
Yes.
Same goes for the employees. So again, I certainly want to see more companies come to market. I mean, Pupkewitz, you go through the list.
Yeah.
We have a lot of brands that we engage with constantly that doesn't allow the public to take part in the growth of the business. And I think it's almost imperative for a Namibian company to open up its shareholder base and allow its clients to take part in its shareholding.
But what is the risk that, what's that term, an aggressive takeover, or what? If I've built a
That's tough to
company over 30 years and
yeah.
I'm growing, things are looking up,
Yeah.
but now I'm a bit worried that I'm going to open up and then...
Yeah. So that's not something that typically would just happen in a listed company.
Oh.
So the free float requirement, meaning the amount that must be available for people to just buy and sell between each other is only 15%.
Oh, okay.
It's 20%, 30% some places. So the bare minimum would be 15%, normal is 20%. So if you're talking about that, that means the existing shareholders are not at risk of being pushed out by the people that are coming along.
Yeah.
If you buy shares in a listed company, the idea is not for you to actually go and sit and say, I think we should be doing this.
Yeah.
The idea is if you like it, then you stay a shareholder. If you don't like it, then you sell it to somebody who wants to be one.
I see.
So there's a fundamental difference there in the role of the shareholder.
Yeah.
So some things will go to an annual general meeting and invite input. That's fine.
Yeah.
But you're not going to take it over by buying 100 shares in a company. No.
Okay. There's a perception about being a shareholder that it's a very exclusive club. Not everybody can participate. What's the reality in terms of the NSX and in terms of what can be done here in Namibia?
Look, I mean, obviously you need some disposable income to actually be able to buy the shares.
Yes.
That's the fundamental. And that's why I say employee share schemes should be fundamentally important in terms of getting more people to be involved in the companies that they work at, but also then giving them the opportunity to actually sell those shares on the open market. So, like I say, it's been growing exponentially, and people are certainly starting to understand better what the value is in being a shareholder, and that as being an investment, as an alternative to a savings account or this or that.
Yeah.
Of course, there's more risk in being a shareholder than there is to having a savings account.
Yes.
Savings account, you know exactly what you're going to get.
Yes.
With being a shareholder, that is not a given.
Yeah.
You hope to get dividends if the company does well, but it's not to say it's always going to be. They might want to use the money that they've made to buy another company or to expand or whatever, and then they don't have a dividend.
Yeah.
So it's not as predictable,
Yeah.
but certainly there's much more upside in that than just having something like a savings account. So there's a bit of teaching and there's a little bit of push and pull in terms of people getting a company to market.
Yeah, yeah. And I think from the shareholder's point of view, you also need to keep track of what's happening. You can't just, not like an investment, not like a savings where you just leave the money there and you look elsewhere.
Yeah.
You got to pay attention to what the company's doing that you invested in. But luckily through your rules, I get access to the information.
Yeah, so that's one of the fundamental things that the stock exchange does, is to make sure that all shareholders and potential shareholders have the same information at the same time.
Okay.
So there's public disclosure of financial statements and declarations and everything else, so that you don't have a scenario where some people already know, oh, this is going to be a good year, and the rest doesn't. So there's closed periods when the people within the organization are not allowed to trade, when they know something that the rest of the market will not yet know, and only once it's public, then everybody's allowed to trade again.
So you create a...
So that's part of the regulated market that I'm talking about.
I see. And from the things you've told me, especially the advantages in terms of governance and in terms of outcomes in general, I'm wondering, is it not possible then for state-owned enterprises to also list and put a little bit of their shareholding on the market?
Well, I mean, MTC, we did exactly that. Government sold off a substantial stake in MTC. So it can be done, it has been done. Throughout Africa, there's a push towards that. especially when you get, and MTC was a very good example of this. MTC was created at a time when no mobile operator wanted to come and set up a network in Namibia. They said too few people, too big a country.
Yeah.
So government partnered up with a telco to say, okay, but we really want it to be done. And they set it up.
Yes.
Became profitable, everything else. Eventually, even the partner left. They went through a few different telco partners. And then they said, okay, well, now it's up and running and everything's doing well. Now we can actually sell off a stake.
Yeah.
So in cases where the market doesn't function well and the private sector doesn't provide a service, then government is almost forced into that position. But they don't have to stay there once it's working.
I see.
And then in other cases, I mean, our government is involved in various areas in the economy where they don't necessarily have to be.
Yeah, yeah.
So then this would be an option for them to get out of some of those areas. Of course, again, your audit needs to be in order. Your finances need to be right. There's certain basic elements that has to be right before you can offer it to the public. But MTC was a wonderful example and it did exceptionally well.
Because I'm thinking of some state-owned enterprises where, in my mind, it's hard to imagine that the public could be involved. Take, for instance, a crucial one being Transnamib. You know, there's a lot of talk about how much we need Transnamib to get on the right track.
Yeah.
And it just, years pass. But would it be possible for such a type of company to list?
So there's all kinds of options there. So you could do a public-private partnership where you actually just make some of the shares available. However, then it needs to be run right and people need to be comfortable that they're making a good investment.
Yeah.
But you've seen different examples. You've seen cases where the rail lines have been completely privatized. And then, I mean, I believe in the UK, you saw it actually being nationalized again.
Yeah.
Because once you have a business monopoly, then they can abuse it.
Yes.
But on the other side, if it's not performing the function that it should, then maybe privatization is the better option. So there's trade-offs in all of this. So there are certain industries that are really of strategic importance that is unlikely to be privatized. I mean, if NAM Water were to privatize, that would be obviously a monopoly.
Yes.
And that you would have a risk that whoever owns it can just say, well, in that case, let's double the prices and we'll make more money. That you can't have that scenario playing out.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't apply for everything, but I think there are quite a few that would certainly do well.
I think also it's a thing of us not knowing our strong points and us wanting to have the spotlight on ourselves. You know what I mean? And a lot of people just don't understand that, you know, you can have your spotlight within a different capacity. It doesn't have to be that person that's at the front, that's, you know, the lead actor or that's holding the mic, you know. So I think that a lot of times we tend to undermine our ability to also just stand out, even in the roles that seem less glamorous and, you know, less visible. So, and that's why we also don't tend to, you know, perfect certain crafts, you know what I mean? But I think that with the exposure that people are having now, I think gradually people are starting to realize that, oh no, we need to actually be like a team.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So now it's just the how. You know, that's not fully there. So some people, yes, you know, are all about their own brand and I need to be visible. It's all about me. But then I think there are actually a group of individuals that also just don't know how to package themselves.
Yes.
So that packaging is, you know, also where I was alluding to earlier on, is where, you know, private sector expertise or other, you know, type of expertise needs to come in to help elevate, you know, those potentials.
Yes.
You know, so symposiums, I mean, like, you know, the Bank of Namibia symposium tomorrow maybe might, you know, be able to, you know, assist on that. I think we need to do further workshopping. We need to do further, you know, just
grassroots.
Exactly,
Yes.
grassroots. Let's take it back to the
Basics,
The
yeah.
basics.
Yeah.
Let's see, you know, from the foundation of your business, what does that look like? You know,
Yeah.
what does a team look like?
Yeah.
And, you know, how can you guys all thrive in your different roles and how
Yes.
can you be supportive of each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, you had previously mentioned the private sector.
Yeah.
How much of a part do they need to play in the development? Because you get the feeling that they're waiting for the creatives to hit a certain point. In that meantime, there's a lot of outsourcing. And I know that's frustrating for the average Namibian creative, where you see the ad says Namibia, the email on the ad says Namibia, the actors immediately you can say they are not Namibian. You know, peace and love to our South African brothers and sisters.
We love you guys.
We love you guys, and we
But
love
you guys
everybody
don't use
else.
us
Yes,
also for your
We
campaigns.
generally do not get called to South Africa for their campaigns. So, should the private sector be a part of the development strategy, not just the output?
Absolutely. You know, at the public-private forum, I actually called out the private sector during my speech, and I said that, listen, you know, even you, I think I mentioned stock of uranium or something like that, and I said, even you guys have a role to play. You know, it's not just up to the president to do everything for us. You know, so please, private sector, come and do your part. You know, support us, whether it's financially or just, you know, like mentoring, like we're saying, and also being intentional about, okay, if we're going to do a Namibian campaign, let it be a full Namibian campaign.
Yes.
You know. And also, let's benchmark what the rates look like. Because we're such a new industry and, you know, we don't have, you know, much previous history of, apart from the smaller gigs, honestly, I wouldn't even use the rates that Namibians generally would get paid for, you know, as a benchmarking rate. I would look at what is the regional, you know, what do the regional standards look like? And how do we benchmark against those standards?
Yes.
You know, because we're looking at sustainability. So if you give me something that I can only use to pay my rent this month, what's going to happen to my rent next month while I'm still waiting for the next gig?
Absolutely.
Because our industry, you know, is still sort of like what do they call it? We're still listed under entertainment. You know what I mean?
Not the creative economy.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, so we're not like we're not the oil and gas sector.
Yeah.
We're not the, you know.
Yet there's middle ground, you know, because for example, there's a lot of companies coming in now with oil and gas, with green hydrogen.
Yes.
All of them need to be talking about what they're doing, telling stories, and that's what artists do.
That's what artists
Yes.
do. We help you elevate your brand.
Yes.
You know, like the Doubters Green Village. If you look at the Doubters Green Village on YouTube, I love what they've done. You
Yes.
know, they have really documented everything from the beginning till now, and they've used a lot of creatives on there. And I believe one of your voices is also one of your voices.
One of my voices.
Your voice is on one of their videos as well.
Yes.
So and this is sort of like, you know, how we can sustainably help each other.
Definitely.
And you know keep on supporting each other. But also in terms of funding, you know, I think we can say that, okay guys, we want to build this artist who's got this potential. She's a musician, you know, and how about we send it to one of, you know, the biggest stages out there. Let's
Yes.
support her.
Yeah.
Or Miss Namibia right now, you
Yes.
know, why don't we invest more into her by getting her clothing, you know? Or if it's a film, guys, this year we're producing another large film. De Beers is coming on board. MTC is coming on board. We're going to make sure that we make an internationally standard,
Yeah.
you know,
International
film.
standard film, yeah.
Exactly. So
100%.
it's really easy, but I don't know why we're not doing it.
Yes, you know, just taking that extra step. And, you know, with my work with The Gathering and all those shows, the one thing that no one is going to tell us is that there's no talent. No one's going to tell us that.
Absolutely.
In Namibia, there is absolute talent in every single industry. But I do think the development has to be quite strategic. Okay, we look at Network Media Hub. They have interns who come in. And these interns get an opportunity to be in every section of the building. So where the issue comes in is often when private sector sees someone who's talented, it's about, okay, how can we leverage what they are, but not how can we help them create a sustainable professional career, because it's too late for things not to be professional.
Yes.
There's Namibians with 1 million followers on TikTok, 1 million followers on Instagram, and we are the Namibia brand.
Yes.
We are the spokespeople for the Namibia brand. We, all due respect, and I mean this truly, the world will always listen to our president. But the storytelling around Namibia is going to come from the artist. Even she's going to refer to the artist when it's time to tell the story of Namibia. Why? Because artists are always interacting with spaces that everyone else takes for granted. So we're trying to develop this industry, and right now the government has come to the table. It says, okay, we're going to sort out policy, we're going to sort out structure. What do the artists do for now?
Upskill. Honestly, I cannot talk about capacity building enough. For me, it's just, upskilling, because in as much as, for example, if you do get, like I was saying earlier on, if you do get the money, you need to be so prepared for it that you need to create a sustainable platform for yourself, or it's at least like a sustainable business for yourself. But you need to also be equipped, for it as well. So apart from, getting further, whether it's education or or experience, or you attend different workshopping, I think like we are in such an agile environment, and people need to realize that honestly the world is, because it's now a global stage, right? It's more competitive than ever. So I've always had this dream in the last, not always, maybe in the last 2 years, might be lying there. But when I was looking at AI, and when I was looking at tech, the developments within the tech industry, I'm just like, guys, the money is actually on your PC.
Definitely.
So one of my visions for this country is honestly for Namibia to become like a post-production hub. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Let's export our services while we're in the comfort of our homes.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that doesn't only have to be editing, but that can be, content creation, or it can look like, marketing services, or, for certain companies. But you need to be so excellent, and you need to be so good at what you do, so that even people outside don't have or can't turn a blind eye.